I've always viewed identity as a never-ending journey. You're always learning new things about yourself. I've always said that you're always a learner, even if you're a teacher too. I tell my students all the time that I learn as much, if not more, from them than what I probably teach them. And so when I reflect on where my journey is right now and how far I've come, yeah, there's times where I look back and I ask myself, did any of this change? Am I a different person from a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago? That's something that we're going to look at today. We're going to look back at one of my old videos and see if my opinions on who I was then and how I identified have changed.
And on this journey, one more love unraveled. I finally learned to love me for me.
This past Saturday was one of my favorite days of the entire year. It was Pride Fest in the city of Kenosha, Wisconsin. And I know that doesn't sound like a big deal, and you might even be thinking, why would that be happening in July? Well, for me, it's a big deal for a couple of different reasons. For one, to answer your question about why it happens in July, they try to pace it out away from Milwaukee Pride Fest because that is so big. And honestly, as I went to it last year, it's very exhausting that they wanted to space theirs out because they're pretty close to Milwaukee. So I get that. As for why it's special for me, though, this was my 4th year going to it. 3 years ago, when I went to my first one, that was my first Pride Fest ever. It was my first Pride event that I'd ever attended to because I was always so anxious about, do I belong there? Would I fit in there? Because being asexual, and at that time I was still adjusting to maybe I'm also aromantic. I wasn't even sure yet. It was still a question of, is this somewhere that I'm even welcome? Well, going to that one, going to Kenosha, because it was very low key and very chill, I felt at home there. And I've felt at home there every year since. But this year was even more special because I got the chance to see a couple of groups that I've worked with over the past year. So I got to see the amazing people at Courage Plus, who you remember I recently did a collaboration working with them on their Unsheltered project. I got to see my friends at the Wisconsin LGBTQ History Project, who we did a collaboration back last year in October for Ace Week. So this was really sort of a, here's your past year wrap up. And it was really cool to get to experience that. And here's something else that was really cool that I got to experience. As Aroace folks, and honestly, a lot of aromantic and to some extent, a lot of asexual folks probably know, we don't normally see ourselves reflected at Pride events. Usually the merchants don't really have stuff for us at the vendor tables, and you might get drawn to something on purpose if it's asexual or aromantic or aroace because that's your identity, because it's the only thing there. So for me to see more things reflect my identities was really, really awesome. And so I want to show you something that I got that I've never seen at a Pride event before. Something that I finally had a chance to buy in person. That's right, I bought my first Aroace Flag. I'd never seen one in person at a vendor before, and this was something very special that I felt like I had to do. But here's the really interesting thing about this. My first big-ish video on this channel, the one that is still, right now anyway, my #1 viewed video, was this. Why I don't use the Aroace flag. And it got me thinking about how I ran into people from Courage Plus, and I ran into the amazing folks at the LGBTQ History Project, and how that allowed me a moment to reflect on my past year. Maybe it's time to revisit this conversation and see, has my thoughts on the Aroace Flag changed since I posted that video about a year and a half ago? So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to look back at this video and we're going to see if some of my thoughts have changed on it.
Convenience is key, right? Why get a strawberry smoothie and a banana smoothie when you can just get a strawberry banana smoothie? But when it comes to identities and the way that we express those identities, it's a bit more complicated than that. If you're new here, my name is Patrick, and I'm an aromantic and asexual content creator. If you don't know what that means, aromantic means that I experience little to no romantic attraction, and asexual means that I experience little to no sexual attraction. There's actually a term for it when you're both, and it's called aroace. Aro being short for aromantic, and ace being shorthand for asexual. Aroaces also have their own flag, but personally, I choose to use the aromantic and asexual flags.
Also, just look at how different the backdrop is, which I think is actually kind of another point, is I've become more confident with being myself. And I mean, yeah, my bookshelf is still on the side there. It's not really in view, but it's still here. And a lot of the stuff there is still there. Actually, I can still see my Bob Uecker clock, which is right up here. I put it more in frame after his passing. But I think it also speaks to, I feel more confident with all of you and with this community and just being myself a little more. So I think that also speaks to one way that I've changed over the last year and a half or so.
As I alluded to earlier, my reasons for this are a bit complicated. Partly it's from my personal experience and how I experience being aroace, and also partly it's from my role as a content creator. Firstly, as an aromantic and asexual content creator, it's really important to me that everyone that sees my videos feel welcome, safe, seen, and valued. I make videos for aromantics, I still agree with, for asexuals, and for aroaces, as well as for allies who are trying to learn more for people who are important to them. So if I were to just use the Aroace flag in my content and in my profile picture, then I'm excluding the people that are only on one side or the other of being aroace. The term allo refers to somebody that does experience a type of attraction. There's allo-romantic asexuals. There's aromantic allosexuals. Those people still do experience one or the other form of attraction while still being aspec.
So I think that's actually a pretty important point that I made there in that video that I still agree with. I'm still going to continue to use the arrow and ace flags separate in my profile pictures because I do want this to be a space where allo-romantic asexuals and aromantic allosexuals both feel comfortable and can see their experiences reflected. I'll still make videos where sometimes I'm only talking about asexuality, sometimes I'm only talking about aromanticism, and sometimes I'm talking about both. I'm going to continue to do that, and I'm going to continue to use the profile picture the way that I use it, and to use green and purple in most of my things, because I do think that is still important for all of us as a community here on this channel. But in a moment here, I'm going to talk a little bit more about where I personally felt at that time. And we'll talk about if I'm still there or not.
I want to make sure that those people feel included in my videos. The words asexual and aromantic represent extremely vast spectrums filled with many unique experiences, myself included. I personally use the two separately because for me, they don't quite match up how I experience them. See, I don't use a micro-label to describe my asexual identity or my connection
That's still true.
with asexuality, but I do for my aromantic identity. See, I never had any interest or attraction towards, shall we say, doing it. I never really understood why people did it. I respected them for doing it, I guess, but never wanted it for myself. In fact, if the conversation ever came up about me doing it, I always felt squirmy. See, I'm what's called an sex-averse asexual. It means that I'm okay with other people having that activity and engaging in that activity. I understand that it's a part of life and that plenty of people still do it. That's fine with me. Where I draw the line, what I refer to as my off-ramp, is when people talk about me doing it or the idea of me doing it. That's where that squirmy feeling comes from. So for me, the word asexual has always made sense just as is. But on the other hand, it's almost the opposite for me when it comes to romance.
So I want to pause for just a moment and give you kind of an analogy of where my headspace is at there. I think of asexuality as something that I don't want to wind up getting those feelings because I don't want that for myself. I don't want to ever do it. I haven't talked about this on this channel, but it's not that I didn't try a couple times. And I deeply regret doing that. Deeply regret it. And I didn't feel like I was me. It felt like an out-of-body experience that I hated. I absolutely hated it. So for me, learning that asexuality was a thing that I could be and that it's okay, that was like, oh, good, because I don't want that. I don't want to do that or feel that because that's not me. So being asexual, fantastic. I think of it like if there's a sports team that you really just, you don't want to have to ever see them win. Like for me, nothing against people in Chicago, but I'm a Milwaukee Brewers fan and there is a deep-seated rivalry with the Cubs. That'd be like if I was told that I never in my lifetime would have to see the Cubs win another World Series. I'd be like, really? And that's okay? Sign me up. But like I'm going to allude to here, aromanticism is a little different from me. And I'm going to pick back up right where I start talking about that.
See, I always wanted a romantic relationship. I've had romantic relationships. I've always loved love stories. I grew up watching shows like Dawson's Creek, One Tree Hill, Gossip Girl, Gilmore Girls. I always wanted that kind of love for myself that I was watching on TV and reading in books, but I never quite found it. Mm-hmm. And I always thought that those descriptions of how characters were feeling, that was made up and for the watchers or the reader's entertainment. I didn't understand that was real for people.
I thought it was a trope, to be
So
honest.
learning about aromanticism, I thought I couldn't be this. Yeah, I haven't felt what those characters felt or what I'm hearing other people are actually feeling, but I still want a relationship, so I can't be aromantic. Until I found a term, cupioromantic. That's somebody that wants a romantic relationship but doesn't experience romantic attraction. So in that way, my identity as being aromantic functions differently than my asexual one does.
So I do still use the term cupioromantic. I've also adopted the term agoromantic for myself. Agoromantic is where you love the concept of romantic attraction. You really like those parts of it, but you still don't experience romantic attraction. And this is why it's different for me between my aromanticism and my asexuality. That analogy I just made about the Cubs winning the World Series, awesome for me. Not necessarily for Cubs fans. There's a lot of Cubs fans in the world, just like there's many allosexual people who, if they were told that same thing, that would be a tragedy for them, right? Well, now imagine as a Milwaukee Brewer fan that I was told that I would never see the Brewers win a World Series. Or just the idea of any of the last handful of years, the way the Brewers have exited the playoffs have been heartbreaking. And especially this past year and when Bob Uecker passed away, because I will actually never hear that man announce the Brewers win a World Series, because now he's no longer with us. There's a grief in that. And for me, there's a grief in being aromantic that I've gotten a lot better about. But there's still moments where it'll pop up. I never have those moments with asexuality, because I don't feel like I've ever missed out. Even when people have told me I'm missing out, I never felt that. But here I do, because my friends are all getting married. They've started families, and while I don't want that half of it, I do still want some of the closeness. I still enjoy sensual touch to a certain extent. And a lot of people think that asexuality means you don't want any kind of touch. That's not true. There's plenty of things. And for me personally, some of the things I really like, I like kissing. I like making out. I enjoy cuddling. So I'd like to have some of those things. And there's a level of aesthetic attraction that I also experience. But the sensual attraction and pleasure of physical touch, that is something that I miss. I miss just having somebody to adventure with. And I know some people might think of this as like, oh, he just wants a friend. Not necessarily, because there's obviously some things that you can't really... Society says that we can't really do some things with friends, right? Or they look at it like, why don't you two just start having a romantic relationship? Why don't you date? And believe me, I've had a lot of friends growing up where that came up, where people asked, why don't you two just date? We didn't want to. That's not what our dynamic was. So I'm still trying to figure out exactly how to approach that, but I kind of have a better idea now what I would like. And so some of that intersectionality, I'm starting to see how my asexuality and my aromanticism kind of come together. And so I've been warming up to the Aroace Flag for a while now, because I'm starting to see some of the intersectionality and the way that some of these things do work together. When I made this past video, I didn't see that because I was very heavily in the grieving stage still.
They don't run along the same track. So to me, using the Aroace Flag feels like a sort of togetherness between the two identities. Whereas for me, they're completely different, and I experience them in very different ways. I can use the term Aroace to describe my identity, because to me, that's the shorthand of saying aromantic and asexual. And I am both of those things. Where it gets a little complicated is that they don't work the same for me. And that's why I don't use the Aroace Flag. Thank you so much for asking that question. That meant a lot to me to be able to explain that. And please be sure to follow me, like, share, and comment on this video, and stay tuned for more.
So yeah, to summarize, I didn't feel like they fit this togetherness that I had understood the Aroace Flag to represent. And I still think that there's some truth in that there is a togetherness, but I also now have a better understanding of community. And I have a better understanding that I can use the Aroace Flag, and people who are asexual, alloromantic still feel a connection to my asexual side. People who are allosexual, aromantic still feel a connection to my aromantic side. I get that now. I get that it's also the community. And I am starting to see some intersectionality where they work together better. So, yeah. in some ways, my understanding of the Aroace Flag has changed since that video. And I think I have a better understanding of who I am, who I want to be, where I feel like I fit in, and who I want around me. And I think that that's progress. And I think it's okay to look back and realize that some of your things about yourself that you understood before have changed. It's okay to change. Sexuality and romantic orientation and gender, all of these things can be fluid for some people. For me, this is a little bit fluid, at least in the sense of my understanding and finding a better way to explain it. What's something that you look back on and you feel like you've changed? And do you feel like you would have liked to go back and let that past you know? Or are you okay with the journey and how it's gone for you? Let me know in this week's comment prompt. I know for me, I wouldn't want to go back, 18 months in time and correct that version of me, because I think it's good that I came to that realization the way I did. And it's how I got to where I am now. I personally wouldn't change that. There's some things that I wish I did know earlier. There's some things where I'm okay with the journey. This is one of those where I'm okay with the journey. Thanks for watching this with me and sort of breaking down how the Aroace Flag and what it represents has kind of changed for me. I know that maybe not everybody agrees with either stance that I went over in this video, either the past self or myself today. And that's okay too. We don't all have to agree on what something symbolizes or what it means, because symbols are deeply personal. And if what I said about it doesn't make sense for you, that's okay. If it does, that's great too. And if this video resonated with you, please be sure to like, share, subscribe to this channel. That past video I showed, that also got me more subscribers than any other video. It might be one that you subscribed because of. It got me, I think, 1,300 subscribers out of the 8,200 that we have now. So for a significant percentage of this community, that was maybe one of your first introductions to me and what I talk about here. So I really thought that that'd be a cool thing to look back on today and just see where we've gone from there. And if you are one of those 1,300 or so people that started following because of that video, thank you for being here still, because that's pretty awesome. That's a year and a half that you've been here. Anyone who subscribed to my channel from the very first video, thank you for still being here. Anyone who's subscribing because of this video, thank you for being here. I appreciate every single one of you, and you're all a part of this journey with me. It means so much to me to have you here for that. And remember, if you want to help support this channel and all the work I do, whether it's the collaboration with Courage Plus that I recently did, or the work with the Wisconsin LGBTQ History Project, or sustaining my website, all the things that I've put together, if you want to help support that, because that's all coming out of me, that would mean the world to me. And there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. For one, I do have a merch site. It's connected to my YouTube channel. So go check that out. I've created some really great merch for aromantic, for asexual, and for Aroace folks. And you can order a copy of my book, Limitless, Poetry of an Aromantic and Asexual Journey, which, by the way, was just featured in a really great video on Instagram by an account called Bookster. They referred to it as a hidden gem in LGBTQ plus books, which was an absolute honor. They have 90,000 subscribers there. So that was really, really special. And I was very caught off guard by that. It meant so much to me to be included in that. I hope that through my writing, through my videos, through everything I'm doing, that people are finding their words and they're finding community and they're finding themselves. I mean, it's helped me. You can tell just from the last reacting to that video to where I'm at now. It's helped me as well. And all of you have helped me. Like I said, I tell my students, I probably learn as much, if not more, from them than what I probably teach them. And that's happened here too. So thank you for being here. Be good to each other and to yourselves. I'll see you in the next one.